Okay, so, we're all about personal growth here, right?
Yeah.
We're always working on ourselves, trying to level up. But have you ever thought about how maybe like some of the biggest improvements we make don't actually come from like, solo effort?
Right, yeah.
It's from connecting with other people, right? Like that's a huge part of growth. And that's kind of the big idea behind this book we're diving into today.
Yeah.
Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi.
Great book.
And it's not, it's not about that like, kind of sleazy old school networking.
Yeah.
It's about building real relationships that are authentic, that actually, can help you succeed and just make life, a richer experience.
Absolutely. And I think Ferrazzi really changes the game with how we think about connecting with people. It's not about just like collecting business cards or, trying to get something from somebody.
Right.
It's really about fostering those genuine connections. And that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to explore some of his key ideas and most importantly, how you can actually use them in your own life.
Yeah. So it's actionable advice, basically.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's start with maybe like one of the biggest mindset shifts that Ferrazzi talks about. And that's moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset when it comes to relationships.
Right.
So what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so a scarcity mindset is basically like thinking that there's only so much to go around, right? Like only so many opportunities, so much help available, and it can make you hesitant to, connect other people or, help them out because you think like, oh, maybe that'll take away from, my own chances.
Right, yeah.
Ferrazzi says, no, it's the opposite. It's an abundance mindset where you believe that actually by helping others and connecting people, you create more opportunities for everybody.
I like that.
Including yourself.
Yeah.
So think of your network as like an ecosystem, right? Like when you introduce two people and they like spark an idea off of each other, that doesn't just benefit them. That idea can create new opportunities that you might even benefit from down the line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just a direct exchange.
It's like you're planting seeds and you never know what's going to grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're seeding the environment for mutual growth.
I love that. And that kind of brings us to the next point, which is don't keep score.
Yeah.
Which feels a little counterintuitive because, we're kind of wired to think like, okay, I did this for you, now you do this for me.
Right. Exactly.
So how do we kind of shift away from that?
Yeah, it's a really important point. And I think if you connect it back to building authentic connections, constantly keeping score just totally undermines trust and genuine generosity.
For sure.
Right. So Ferrazzi really emphasizes giving value, offering support, sharing your time freely, and just trusting that those positive actions are going to create a ripple effect over time.
Right.
Just think about how your interactions would change if you just let go of that scorekeeping.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off.
It does.
Allows for more genuine connections.
Yeah, and it feeds into I think it's one of his most powerful statements that your network is your success. But he's not just talking about like, climbing the corporate ladder.
Right.
It's a much bigger idea than that, right?
It is. If you connect it to like your personal growth journey,
yeah,
your network becomes this amazing resource of knowledge, support, and like different perspectives.
Right.
Right. Because everybody you connect with brings their own unique experiences and insights. And so by building a strong network, you're kind of tapping into this collective intelligence that can help you navigate challenges.
You're not in your own little bubble.
Exactly. You're seeing things from different angles.
Yeah.
Getting that sounding board you might not have on your own.
Yeah. That's so key. And then, underpinning all of this, Ferrazzi talks a lot about the importance of authenticity.
Yeah.
You can't build those real connections if you're not being yourself.
Exactly.
So how do we bring more authenticity into our interactions?
Well, what's interesting about how Ferrazzi talks about authenticity is it's not just about, being yourself, but also being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. Acknowledging your weaknesses, admitting when you don't know something, being open to asking for help.
Right.
Now, that might feel a little uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's that vulnerability that allows other people to connect with you on a deeper, more human level.
It's real.
Builds trust way more effectively than, trying to pretend you're perfect all the time.
Right.
So it's really a good opportunity to like reflect on how you present yourself. Are you being too guarded? Are you allowing space for that genuine connection?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the mindset shift, abundance, generosity, the power of your network, and authenticity. But let's get into some like actual things you can do.
Okay.
Ferrazzi talks about doing your homework before you connect with someone.
Yeah.
Which sounds a little intense.
Right. It's not like you're, going full on private investigator.
Right.
It's more about just like demonstrating respect and laying the groundwork for a better conversation.
Okay, yeah.
Right. If we connect it back to making other people feel important.
Yeah.
Taking even just a few minutes to understand their background, their work, what they're interested in.
Yeah.
That shows that you value their time.
Totally.
You're genuinely curious. And it lets you move beyond that like generic small talk.
Yeah.
Right? You can ask more insightful questions.
So give me an example.
So like, let's say, somebody recently spoke at a conference.
Right.
You can ask them about a specific point they made that really resonated with you.
Okay.
That shows you're paying attention.
Yeah.
You're engaged.
You're not just like, hey, nice to meet you, so what do you do?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's much more thoughtful.
It's a real conversation.
Yeah, I like it. So what about finding common ground? Because he talks about that too. How can we do that in a way that doesn't feel forced?
Yeah, and common ground could be so many different things. It could be, professional interests. It could be hobbies.
Right.
Experiences you've both had.
Yeah.
Or even just like, a shared love of, a certain kind of music or food.
Yeah.
The key is to be genuinely curious about the other person.
Right.
And listen for those points of connection.
Right.
Ask open-ended questions. Not just, what do you do? But like, what do you enjoy most about your work? Or what are you passionate about outside of work?
Right. Yeah.
Those questions are more likely to reveal some shared interest that you can connect on.
Okay. So like think about what you're passionate about and then you can weave that into conversation somehow.
Exactly. And see who else is passionate about those things.
I love it. Okay. So he also emphasizes making people feel important.
Yeah.
Which again seems obvious.
Right.
But how do we actually do that?
Yeah. I mean, active listening is a huge part of it.
Okay.
It's not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Right.
It's like being fully present, making eye contact, nodding, asking clarifying questions, even summarizing what they said to make sure you understand. And it goes beyond just the conversation itself.
Yeah.
If you follow up on something they mentioned, or you offer to help them with a challenge they're facing, or you just remember details about their lives.
Right.
All of that shows that you were really listening.
And that you care.
And that you value them as a person. Yeah.
Okay, so vulnerability comes up again here in the toolkit section.
It does, yeah.
It's a really key theme.
It is. And it's worth, bringing up again because it is so important for deepening those connections.
Yeah.
When you're willing to be open about your own struggles, your own mistakes, when you ask for advice, you're creating this sense of like shared humanity.
Right.
It tells the other person you trust them.
Yeah.
You're not trying to project this image of perfection, and that vulnerability often leads to those really strong bonds.
Yeah. Okay, even something as simple as small talk.
Yeah.
Ferrazzi has some interesting thoughts on that. It's about being interested rather than trying to be interesting.
Right, exactly.
So how do we apply that the next time we're, just chatting with someone casually?
Yeah, it's a subtle but powerful shift. Instead of trying to impress someone with your own stories.
Right.
He says, focus your energy on really engaging with them. Ask open-ended questions.
Okay.
That encourage them to share. Really listen to what they're saying.
Right.
And look for what he calls anchor tenets. These are like, the interests or the experiences that really light someone up.
Okay.
And they can be a springboard for a deeper conversation. So even those casual interactions can be a chance to start building a stronger connection just by showing genuine curiosity.
I love that. Okay, so you've made a connection now. How do you turn it into an actual relationship that benefits both of you?
Yep.
Ferrazzi talks about following up promptly.
Yeah.
So what's a good rule of thumb for that?
Yeah, this is where I think a lot of potentially great connections fizzle out.
Yeah.
That initial meeting is just the first step. Following up, within 12 to 24 hours shows that you're really interested and that you value their time.
Okay.
You could send a personal note referencing something you discussed or connect on LinkedIn.
Right.
Keeps the conversation going.
Yeah.
And shows that you want to build a real relationship, not just a one-off interaction.
Yeah. So the title of the book, Never Eat Alone, is more than just the catchy title, right?
It is. It's like a whole philosophy.
Yeah.
He's saying be intentional about using everyday activities like meals, coffee breaks, even your commute.
Right.
As opportunities to connect with people. It's about actively seeking out those interactions.
Yeah.
Rather than just isolating yourself.
So think about your routine. Are there times when you could invite a colleague to lunch or grab coffee with someone you want to get to know better?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Turn those routine moments into relationship building opportunities.
Okay. And he also talks about becoming a hub.
Yeah.
Connecting other people in your network.
so powerful.
How do we do that?
When you're actively trying to connect people who could benefit from knowing each other,
Yeah.
you're not just helping them. You're also strengthening your own position as a valuable connector.
It's like being generous.
It's demonstrating generosity
Yeah.
and that you're genuinely interested in seeing other people succeed.
Yeah.
So think about your network right now. Are there two people you know who could maybe collaborate,
Right.
offer each other support, or just benefit from knowing each other?
Yeah.
Making of those introductions can be so rewarding for everyone involved.
And what about pinging? Just staying in touch regularly in a low-key way?
Yeah, it's about those small, consistent touches that keep the relationship warm
Right.
without, being too demanding.
Okay.
It could be
Okay.
just sharing an article they'd appreciate, sending a congrats note,
Yeah.
a quick thinking of you message. All those things go a long way in maintaining those connections over time.
Yeah, it shows you're thinking of them.
Yeah.
The last thing he talks about is how developing your own diverse interests can actually make you a more engaging connection for others.
Right.
Which makes sense. The more you know, the more you have to talk about.
Exactly.
So how does that actually benefit our relationships?
Well, when you're curious and you pursue all sorts of different interests,
Yeah.
you become a more well-rounded, interesting person. You have more to bring to conversations. You can find common ground with a wider range of people.
Right.
And it's just, it's a positive cycle. The more you learn and experience, the more valuable you become as a connection.
Okay, he wraps it up by suggesting a relationship action plan,
Yeah.
which sounds kind of strategic.
It is.
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah.
So what would a simple plan like that look like?
Yeah, well, I think if you connect it back to, your personal growth journey,
Yeah.
being intentional about your relationships is just as important as being intentional about, learning new skills.
Right.
So a relationship action plan doesn't have to be this formal thing,
Yeah.
but it's about, thinking about which relationships you want to nurture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how you're going to invest your time and energy in them.
Okay.
So it could be something as simple as, setting a goal to reach out to one or two people a week,
Okay.
or identifying, a few relationships you really want to deepen over the next few months,
Right.
and brainstorming some ideas for how to do that.
Okay, so to bring it all together.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways that people can start using today to build those stronger, more meaningful relationships?
Well, I think there are a few that really stand out. That idea of give before you get.
Right.
Approach every interaction thinking about what you can offer, not what you can get out of it.
Yeah.
Second, make a conscious effort to make people feel important.
Okay.
Really listen to them, be genuinely interested,
Yeah.
follow up thoughtfully.
Right.
And third, be consistent with that follow-up. That simple act can be the difference between, a fleeting connection and a lasting relationship.
Yeah.
So think about it.
Who can you follow up with after your next interaction? How can you make it personal?
Yeah.
And in your next conversation, how can you approach it with generosity and genuine curiosity about that other person?
It's about moving beyond those transactional relationships and focusing on building those real human connections that make your life richer.
Exactly.
And I think ultimately it's a more successful way to navigate, life in general, both
Right.
professionally and personally.
I think so too. It's about recognizing that we're all connected.
Yeah.
And that by investing in our relationships with, generosity and authenticity, we're not just building a network, we're building a richer, more fulfilling life.
I love that. So as you go about your day today,
Yeah.
think about the next person you interact with. How can you use just one of these principles to make that connection a little bit stronger?
Yeah.
What small act of generosity can you offer? It's those small intentional steps that can really transform your relationships
Absolutely.
and your own personal growth.
I agree.